Hello, Michael Holman here, Curt's Clocks, the Atmos Repair Specialist. Today I want to show you how to start the Atmos Modern Style. And you're looking at a picture of it here. It was cataloged in 1974 and 1975, and the types, the features that you can choose is a red gold plated cabinet, that's caliber 528 movement, and also the same thing but in rhodium plated. And those are a lot more rare. Both of these models are very rare. Unfortunately, the book doesn't tell you how many are actually produced or, entered America and things like that. But, it's pretty clear that this is a very rare clock. I want to show you how to start it because there are some design kind of differences about this for sure, and that's part of the reason it's rare. So I'll show you how to start this clock, and you will need both hands for doing this. You're going to have to approach the clock on the side, and this front lifts off, but what I'm doing is I'm taking my two fingers here and holding the clock steady and then using these two fingers to open it, and with my thumb too, because that way you don't go and yank the clock around. You don't want to just pull solely on the door and pull the clock off the shelf. So you pinch, the sides of the clock to make sure it doesn't move, and they just have these kind of spring-fitting snaps that just release from the sides here and let you open that. So you're going to need two hands because on this model, in order to start it, there is a very small wheel underneath that must be turned, and it's counter threaded, so you turn it the opposite way to lock and the opposite way to unlock. And I'll point that out. I believe, you turn right to loosen and left to tighten on this one. And then again, just from a design standpoint, I guess I would have made that wheel a little larger, because with my large hands, it's difficult to get under there and do that. And then also up here with your lid that opens up, they could have put a kickstand here. That would have been nice if they put a kickstand there, and there is some weight to this cabinet. It really is a large case, compared to a 540. There's the comparison. And of course 540s are a little bit smaller, but you can see that this is a solid case that has some weight to it. So you're going to need free hands to start this clock. Okay? And I'll get my photo back adjusted. Okay, so the way I've been doing it is once I have it open here like this, I come underneath with my hand palm up, and I just use my fingers. And yeah, I turn the wheel right to open that screw. It's just a screw, a locking screw like other models have underneath it, and that just protrudes up and stops that balance. You see those on 540s, and they even had them all the way back to 526 5s. But yeah, you turn this, which would be towards the right to open it, and towards the left will be to lock it. And you might see the balance begin to move a little bit. But what I'm going to do now, and this is also very well covered and reiterated in my how to start the Atmos clock video. What I'm going to do now is go and make sure that the balance is level, and the way that I do that is I don't necessarily put a lot of focus onto that level because things can happen, they can move around. Some clocks don't have them. What I do is I come over here and I look at where that balance runs down through that shelf between the movement stands, the movement plates. And you can make sure that it's hanging directly in the center of there, and you can see a little bit of a gap towards the back. And so that means I'm going to raise the front ever so slightly. And I'll set this back down and get back to our two-handed operation here, and we can raise the front. And when doing so, I make it easier by lifting the corner and then screwing to the right. And this will push that downward and make that leg taller. But I lift the side of the case here because it makes it easier to turn that screw. And then we'll go over here and do the same thing. And I'm just tilting it up just ever so gently, turning that over. And now we have our balance hanging directly over that hole in that shelf. And I'm gonna come over here and show you, like the other video, what it would look like if the balance is out of position. Carefully. Now you never yank on the balance or push it around. See how there's that big gap there? Now it's hanging directly over the hole. Big gap, hole, okay? All right, so we gotta set our time, and I just stopped this clock. You know, it's running well on the shelf now, and I'm just kind of regulating the timekeeping and making sure everything's good. I did the cleaning, oiling, and bellow test. Bellows are fine, and wire's fine, pallet fork is fine. All those things, you know, were just needed a little TLC, and what it is the lubrication on the mainspring gets gummy. And that mainspring is all coiled up and sliding against itself. If it gets sticky, well, it reduces the amount of the power that the clock is able to release. All right, so we just have to move our hands very slightly. And sometimes you'll hear people saying, oh, I start my Atmos clock by moving the hands. I wouldn't recommend that. It puts a lot of stress on that fork, and you can bend that up easily. If you want a reminder, go watch how to start the Atmos clock video. But nice for this case is I just need to move it 5 minutes over, and I'm still having to hold that up. Okay, now, holding up that cabinet lid, now I come down here and very carefully I turn the wheel, and while I'm doing that, I'm watching the position of the roller from the top view. And I'll get my camera and show you here. The roller is identified in that other video, but I'll tell you again now from right here. Between that crack, you see the roller, and it's on the right side of the pallet fork, and the pallet fork is on the left of it, and it's outside of it, and it's all the way, you know, all the way around and nearly touching it. Again, be gentle. If you bump that too much, you'll close up the pallet fork, and it won't be able to accept the roller and pass it through. So now I have it a good distance away from the pallet fork, and I know it will be an adequate start to let that go. You know, and then you'll carefully shut your lid the same way you had done when you opened it, now by holding the clock steady and then pushing it closed. And then you can let it run. You know you got it level, you know you've got everything all started up. But these are just some kind of quirks with this design that you really don't know until you get your hand on it if you've never seen such a rare clock. This is the first one I have ever worked on. So I thought I'd make this video for you guys to see this case, and also for the owner, Miss Aronson, who sent me the clock. I want her to not only see that it's running and looking good, but also just kind of get my, you know, it's not really coaching, it's just little pointers in how to start the clock and keep it running and things. You know, things that I would do to a customer who comes over and then brings the clocks over. When I give them the clock, I give them this run through. So when people send them to me from California or wherever, I like to follow up with some kind of support tool, and this is a nice way to do it with YouTube, and also show information for other people that are interested in the awesome Atmos clock by Jaeger-LeCoultre. Okay, so, you know, just one last thing. I think this is the premise of the video, and of course there's more information. How to regulate, I have a video. Also how to start on another, just a typical 528 Atmos clock, and that applies to many different clocks. You can check those out and get some more parts identification and things like that. And I just want to tell you one last thing about this clock, and it's a great reason, or a great time for me to point out the reason that I'm wearing these rubber gloves when I service your clocks, when I take them off the shelf, anytime. Not only because, you know, I've cleaned the glass and the case all up now, and I hate to get my fingerprints on them, but what happens when you leave your fingerprints on the clocks can be seen right here. That's a person's thumbprint, and who knows how long it's been on here. You know, it may have been someone who serviced a clock 30 years ago. So you don't see it right away, of course. The fingerprints are pretty much invisible, but 30 years later you will. And that's just an idea of the oil in your skin in a reaction with metallic and, you know, easily corroded parts. There used to be a lacquer coating on this, I imagine, but that breaks down, you know, and chemicals have gotten better over the years at maintaining their cohesion, you know, the chemistry and the bonds and things. In the past, you know, chemicals break down and they weren't as, you know, they weren't as studied as they are today. They were earlier on in the progression of, you know, development. So, but anyway, the clock's running, keeping time, and that balance just keeps on spinning. So I won't take too much of your time up here, but I'll give you one more clue too. Is and on this model now with the we'll get our camera lower here so we can get below that. You know, you see that pallet fork protruding up, and now you can see that roller coming back around. Watch the way that the pallet pushes it. See that little slap? Now, if you got your clock at home and you just got this out of the closet for 20, it's been in there 20 years, or someone had it for 20 years on their shelf and now you inherited it, what may be, and you don't know if the clock runs or not, come under here like that. You have to get under, look under the 12, and the silver roller is the cylinder shape, and that's going to rotate around and enter that fork that's kind of an aluminum color, and it pushes with prongs, and that's the power being released, and that's pushing that roller and spinning this back. It's not really spinning it, it's just assisting it. It's just assisting that wire. And you can see that this clock has really good motion because that roller almost goes full 360. But it isn't, it's just assisting the twist and untwist of the wire with the very small amount of power released. And that's why they're in a glass case and all that, is because since they use such low amount of power, just the slightest resistance like dust can, you know, interrupt that train, that gear train. So again, it's Michael Holman, Curt's Clocks, the Atmos repair specialist. Call me, check it out, website, emails, whatever. Please contact and like videos, subscribe them. I hope that you enjoyed today's look at the Atmos Modern Style by Jaeger-LeCoultre.